corporate guests joining us now with their take on what the interim budget means for the economy. With us, Rajiv Memani of EY, Sumant Sinha of Renew Power, and Sanjiv Puri of ITC. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on the program. Sumant, one of the announcements, and perhaps one of the few new announcements that came in, was of course on that solar rooftop scheme. I have now got clarity that 10,000 crore rupees will be allocated for the scheme, and of course the private sector will be involved in the scheme as well. Your takeaway on the potential benefits, the impact, the implications in the medium to long term of such a scheme?
Well, Shereen, first of all, it's really good that the scheme has been announced, because for the longest time, I think we've been struggling to get more solar on rooftops. It's been pretty difficult because there are quite a few issues and hurdles. I think this scheme has in some ways repositioned it by sort of referring to it as free bijli, and trying to concretize the benefits that any individual homeowner will get. And I think there's also financing behind this, which therefore hopefully gives a capital subsidy to make sure that the installation of these rooftop solutions becomes cheaper. And in some ways it actually brings, as the Prime Minister was saying, the whole issue of solar energy closer to the common person. So I think the idea is to create a whole ecosystem of installation people, equipment suppliers, and really make this a much more broad-based scheme than it was originally being sort of thought about.
Well, yes, that certainly is the case. Let me bring Sanjiv Puri back into the conversation. Sanjiv, great to have you back on the program. Of course, not much in terms of fine print to analyze this time around, but broadly, both from an investment perspective as well as a consumption perspective, where do you believe the interim budget has left us? And on the back of this, what's the hope now from the finale?
Well, I think this budget, as I said to you in the morning, reflects the ongoing approach, the ongoing vision and strategy of the government. And very clearly, it has articulated the next steps of the journey, and very important steps. And some of those, actually, they touch all the sectors of the economy, whether it's agriculture, services, or manufacturing. And I think one very important steps that's been taken is to provide more resources to the private sector for innovation and research and development, and these are of long-term tenures. The private sector R&D is not to the extent that it should be, for us to develop our own IP, our own value chains, and to stand on a very solid foundation of technology. It's an area that even agriculture requires investment. So I think that's a very important pillar that's come through. I do believe that the continued focus on infrastructure, physical, digital, the focus on tourism is another great opportunity, because tourism has enormous economic multipliers. I think estimates say that as much as 50 million additional jobs can be created. It's a sector that can provide opportunity to not only enterprises building hotels, but also a lot of micro and small enterprises. There's a lot of focus on rural, a very specific focus on certain very important sectors in agriculture, be it aqua, be it the oil seeds, be it the dairy sector as the largest sector. So very important focus there. And of course, also on education and skilling. So I think a lot of the right pillars for enabling a competitive growth are in place. And as you rightly said, of course, we have to see the fine print, the details when the budget happens. But very clearly, the direction has been articulated, and the direction certainly gives a lot of hope and optimism. And it's a direction that has already delivered in the past, and we expect it to take it to the next level going forward.
Rajiv Memani, I put the comments that we were discussing in the morning to TV Somanathan, the Finance Secretary, when he was here with me a short while ago. And his point of view is that industry is getting it wrong. This is not a conservative budget by any stretch. And I'm talking about conservative from a collections point of view. He believes that this is very, very realistic. And of course, he's presented his arguments as to why he says so. Having had a look at the numbers now, Rajiv, your take on the interim budget, but more importantly, Vinayak just now saying that he doesn't believe this can be the final capex number. He thinks that come the union budget, the full budget, we are going to see the 35% number return. I wanted to understand what you make of that.
No, I think that with 10.5% growth, 12%, 11.5% increase in taxes, no major changes in tax rates. I still feel that the tax buoyancy would be slightly higher and should be slightly higher. But as you've seen, Shereen, there are lots of schemes that they've also announced, for which maybe, as the schemes get clearer, they will be making the provisions for the same. So I guess they need some room for flexibility there. The fiscal deficit target is an aggressive one, and that's why there's been a lot of conservatism on the allocations also. So if anything happens on oil, fertilizer, and everything else, you need some room for maneuvering there. I personally don't think that I don't entirely agree with Vinayak that the capex number is going to change dramatically. If they have to look at this 5.1% fiscal deficit, if this number is correct, then to dramatically change it will be difficult, because 7% GDP growth is a reasonable estimate given where global economies are. I mean, I know we are not fully impacted by that, but you can't, exports, imports do have some impact. Sentiments have some impact on that. And to allocate more than that towards capex, given that we still have, interest payments are a big composition of where we are. I think that will be difficult. Although if you see the composition of expenditure over the last 4 years, 5 years, the revenue expenditure has steadily gone down by 2 to 3%. And the capex has moved up from, by almost from 2% roughly to 3.4%. So directionally, it's right. I mean, I don't know whether they'll change marginally or not, but I don't think there'll be much change. And I think it's good to have some room. I think there could be potentially some room on the income as well, whether it's dividend income, disinvestment receipts, whatever they have. I think there could be some room for flexibility there as well. But all in all, I would say very positive and good to keep it conservative.
Yes, Rajiv had left us with a triple C budget, continuity, consolidation. What was the third C, Rajiv?
I really liked, for me, what was most important was you didn't go for the short-term thing. So I think one was confidence and and credibility. I mean, if you look at the quality of numbers, the quality of even the quality of the fiscal deficit that is coming through, the reduction in subsidies, the increase in capex. So I think just the credibility and consistency. I think there's been no change. Broadly, even if I look at the policy announcements, most of them are towards either infrastructure, new energy, some in the auto sector, and then on innovation, FDI, and some on the PLI semiconductor piece. So overall, you just see a good pattern of where the government is really focusing on newer areas, new technologies, strengthening the infrastructure. So those are the three things I feel were kind of defining the budget.
Sumant Sinha, I'll give you the final say. How would you sum up the interim budget? And more importantly, what are the expectations now from the full budget?
Well, I think this interim budget has actually been quite a good one, I would say. To me, the biggest highlight of this was the reduction in the fiscal deficit, while keeping some spend going on capex. I would be surprised if they have fiscal room to increase spends very significantly from this point in the final budget. But even an 11% growth is not bad. I think of course the important thing is that they actually have to spend all of this money as well, and it's a fairly significant amount of capex that has to be spent. So I think the reduction in the fiscal deficit, the reduction in the borrowings, market borrowings for next year compared to this financial year by almost 7-8%, I think that's very significant. And I think what the FM in a way is signaling is that, look, the government has been doing its bit, continues to do its bit. Now it's making room a little bit for the corporate sector to come in as well. And I think it's also important now for the corporate sector to drive things forward. I think I do agree with Rajiv when he says that this is I think it's a very modern, progressive budget, in that it's trying to create a very different kind of India, an India that is strong on infrastructure, an India that is focused on technology, that is focused on newer sectors, and that is focused on R&D and is focused on manufacturing. So I think that's the kind of India that is sought to be created, and I think it's terrific that we're making investments in a lot of these new areas. In just the clean energy area, for example, as you talked about rooftop solar, but there are a number of other things that are also being sought to be done, which are again, going to really put India on a leadership track as far as the whole clean energy transition and economy is concerned. And I think that's what the FM has done in a number of different sectors. So I think there are a lot of now new engines of growth that are emerging, which can hopefully drive the growth of the economy in the next several years. And all of this in the backdrop of fiscal consolidation and hopefully getting down to 4.5% next year. So I think, full marks to the FM and to the Prime Minister for maintaining that discipline and yet continue to grow the economy in directions that they really feel is important to drive our future growth and sustainable growth, at 7-8% for the next 2-3 decades into this Amrit Kal period. So I think full marks to the government for having done that.
Sanjiv, Puri, the last comment.
Sorry, who was it meant for, Shereen? I think we missed that.
For you. I was asking you for the last comment to sum up the budget.
Okay, so I kind of, endorse what Sumant has captured it quite well. It's a budget that's progressive, is going to make India competitive, and there are a lot of investments happening to do so. And what is very heartening to also note, I think very clearly the government is also signaling that the reform agenda will continue. I think the whole idea of incentivizing the states to progress on reforms indicates that the next generation of reforms are going to be pursued, and perhaps also some of them that need to be implemented more speedily at the state level will also be progressed through these instruments that are put in place. So I think it augurs well for the future of the economy, it augurs well for the industry, and provides enough opportunity for, I think, all sections of society to actualize their potential.
Puri, Rajiv, Memani and Sumant Sinha, many thanks for joining us here on the CNBC-TV18 Budget Headquarters to decode the interim budget and its impact. Appreciate your time. We are going to take a break here, but when we return, we'll be joined by more budget makers. Ashwini Vaishnav coming up right after this. Stay tuned.